Amanda here, and today I wanted to give you some spooky book recommendations to read this October. So hopefully you can find something in here that you think you would enjoy, and let's begin. So the first book I wanted to recommend to you today is actually this book right here. It is called Kill Creek, and this is by Scott Thomas. Now, if you look at it, you think, okay, it's probably just a typical haunted house story where, you read 300 pages and then finally we get to the creepy stuff. Yeah, that's not really how this book is at all. They leave the house about halfway through and you're like, wait, what? And then there's a whole other mess of stuff that happens. So it's actually a story about 4 writers who are invited to this haunted house for kind of like a publicity stunt. They're going to have an interview on Halloween. It's going to be streamed live by a big website, so a lot of fans can view the conversation. So that is what happens. Let me find my notes here. It's written about 4 writers writing, so you really go into detail learning about these 4 writers. It's like a 400-page book, so the character development is just fantastic, and I found myself actually caring about the characters, which is hard to do in a horror novel, especially when they're not the most upstanding citizens, you could say. Yeah, you get to like kind of delve into what each one writes about. That was really impressive for the writer to write smaller stories within the stories, and even those stories were really entertaining in themselves. So I was really impressed by that. I thought that it was a well put together novel, and a lot of like gory, bloody imagery. So it's not so much a traditional haunted house story. I would say it's more about the power of fear, if that makes sense. I don't want to go too into it, but you just go on this crazy ride with these 4 writers to the haunted house and even afterwards. So afterwards, they're kind of like haunted by an entity who's using their past against them. So you get to learn more again about their past. You get to really delve into like their guilt, their grief, their experiences with abuse, like traumatic events. You really get to see their pain through these experiences. So that I really enjoyed. You think it's a typical ghost story, you think you know what's going to happen, and then it kind of flips it on its head. But if you want to read something this October where you're kind of just creeped out, read this book, because once you pick it up, you will not be able to put it down. I read this in 4 days because so much just kept going on, and I'm like, okay, well, as soon as I get done with this part, then I'll put it down, and then something else would happen. I'm like, okay, well, now when I get done with this part. So I read this in 4 days, and it was an interesting ride. Highly recommend Kill Creek for this October's reading. Next up, I wanted to recommend this. So this is actually Stories from the Twilight Zone, and this is by Rod Serling, obviously. So if you don't know Rod Serling, he's the host of The Twilight Zone, the narrator, but he's also a writer, and he wrote most of the episodes as well. There's a foreword in here by his daughter, but I wish that they gave us a little bit more information. I'm not sure if these were expanded from the script of the Twilight Zone episodes, or if he wrote these as short stories and then took them and turned them into scripts for the episodes. I don't know. But honestly, it was just really cool to see some of my favorite episodes like come to life in a different way, just a different form of being able to view them. So these are actual episodes from the series, and there are, I think, like 6 of them. So they have The Mighty Case. This is the one where the baseball team hires a player that is a robot. That's one episode. The next short story in here is The Escape Clause. So that's where a man's like hypochondriac, very paranoid of dying, so much so that he's not really living, and he makes a deal with the devil to be able to live longer. We have Walking Distance, and that's where the man goes back to his hometown, and he's kind of transferred back in time, and he's able to kind of see life how it was when he was a young boy. And then we have The Fever, which is about a couple who goes to Los Angeles. No. Jeez, what is wrong with me today? A couple who goes to Las Vegas, and a man is compelled to gamble due to an evil, not a vending machine. Ding ding, what are those called? Slot machine. Holy sh. And then we have Where Is Everybody? This is the one where the man, he walks around town and he can't find anybody, and at the end you figure out that it's kind of like an experiment that the Air Force is doing, And then the last one is The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, and this is when they suspect that an alien invasion has taken place, and this street kind of turns against each other, not knowing who is the infected alien and who is a human. So they're all really good episodes, and like I said, it's really cool to kind of just see them in a different form. The Twilight Zone was such an important part of my childhood. Every single holiday, instead of having like football or whatever on in the background, we just watched sci-fi of just the Twilight Zone marathon. So this was such a huge part of my childhood. I love Rod Serling. Oh, this show has just like such a huge part of my heart. So I thought that this was really cool that they have a book about this, a book containing the short stories written in like a longer form than the show. When I first bought this, I thought that maybe it was a script, which I love reading like scripts too, so I thought that that would be cool, but it's actually, yeah, just full short stories. So highly recommend this if you love the Twilight Zone as much as I do. Next up today, we have Entropy in Bloom. This is by Jeremy Robert Johnson. This is a book of short stories, and wow, there's a lot going on in here. So let me just look back over my notes here. Okay, so this is not at all what I thought that it was going to be. It immediately interested me, it drew me in, and I always wanted more. So at the end of short stories, I was like, no, don't be done yet. Like, this could be a novel in itself. I was so invested in the stories, and I just thought that they were so unique and interesting and odd, and I loved them. There's a lot of different variety in here. So you have a lot of stories about drugs, betrayal, murder, body modification. There's one story that's kind of like The Thing mixed with Slither. There's another story that kind of gives me like Reanimator vibes. There's a lot of unique stuff in here. So it's sci-fi, it's horror. Some are very mild, some are intensely brutal. Some make you wince because they're so like, you know those stories? Yeah, this was one of them. Some are really sad, they pull on your heartstrings. Like, it's just such an emotional roller coaster reading this book. And I will say this with this one, you think you know where it's going, and I promise you, if you pick this up, you never know where the story is going. I can promise you that. At the end, you'll always be like, that is not what I expected to read from that. So this one, it's creepy, it's fun, it's weird. If you like weird books, I think you'll love this one, because this is an odd one for sure. I love the cover, I think it's really pretty, and I just really like it. It's the last book I have to recommend to you today. Oh, I'm so excited. This one is Ray Bradbury's The October Country. So first I'm going to read you this like little excerpt from the front. It's this little paragraph right here. It says, October Country. The country where it is always turning late in the year, the country where the hills are fog and the rivers are mist, where noons go quickly, dusks and twilights linger, and midnights stay. That country composed in the main of cellars, subcellars, coal bins, closets, attics, and pantries faced away from the sun. The country whose people are autumn people, thinking only autumn thoughts, whose people passing at night on empty walks sound like rain. Oh, isn't that beautiful? I read that and I'm like, I'm autumn people. I'm only thinking autumn thoughts. I just love that so much. So this book is like written for October. So seriously, you gotta read this one during this month. Let's look at my notes here. So this one again is a book of short stories, a lot of variety in here. There's stories about demon babies, vampires, monsters, killer wind, death, murder. There's just such a variety. We've got horror, sci-fi, fantasy. We got it all. So I think if anybody picked up this book and read it, I think that they would find a few stories that they really enjoy. I liked every single one. There was not one that I didn't enjoy. I liked them all, and then I loved a few of them that I was just blown away. So I highly recommend this book. When you're reading this, I mean, it's by Ray Bradbury, so you know he's an amazing author, but like truly, like you could smell the apple cider in the air, you could see the leaves falling, you know, you could hear the waves crashing in the lake. Like he's just such a writer that can tap into your senses. He's fantastic. These are my 4 recommendations for this year. If you guys want more recommendations, you can check out my video that I posted last year about horror books to read in October. I'll leave that video linked at the end so you can watch that one as well. Every single one of those still apply. I still love every single one of those videos, but I wanted to bring you a video, if you have already seen that one, of some different stories that I read this year that I really, really liked. So those are my recommendations for this year. Highly recommend. Hopefully you can pick them up and do some creepy reading before October. I will say if you want more brutal, then I would do Kill Creek or Entropy and Bloom. If you want more mild, I would do the October Country or the Twilight Zone series. So all fantastic, all amazing. And very last thing is, if you have any recommendations for me to read this October, please leave them down below, because you guys always leave me the most amazing comments of great movies and films and videos and books, and you guys are the best. So leave them down below. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.